I said, good to see you. Hi, James. Hi, Archana. Anna, James, Day. Oh, clinical hypnotherapist. I love that. I said, can you guys hear me? Said, can you hear me?
I can hear you. My apologies. I was away from my computer for a moment.
Oh, no worries, because nobody responded. Oh, good to see you, James.
Yeah, I'm still getting my camera turned on, obviously. Let me stick this over here.
That's okay.
I literally was down the hall.
No,
there we go.
Hi, Archana. Oh.
Hi. Hi, Saket. Hi, Sid.
Hi, Parul. Hi, and Compassion team.
Oh, that's me. I'm Manasi. Thank you. Hi.
I really love the way the certificates are displayed on James' wall.
Thank you.
Sid, I would also like you to do something like that. Build a wall and put up all the certificates that you've gathered, which are like a load.
This is where this is the environment that I use to meet clients. And so that's just on my wall so that they know who I am. Kind of. Yeah. They're not really big enough to read unless you have a huge screen, but you know.
Yeah, but that's actually, that's what we call is authority building. Convinces them.
Yeah.
Sid, I can't hear you.
Oh, I just came by to say hello and to just wish you all the best and say I'm sorry for missing the session. I'll see you guys, Saket and Mansi, over to you guys.
Sure.
See you. Bye-bye.
So while people join in, other people join in, Mansi, would you like to tell us something more about what this non-violent communication is all about? So nobody can tell me now that I hurt their feelings.
I don't think that's at all what it's about, but why don't you hang out in the workshop and find out?
I'm definitely here in the workshop.
Rather than giving you a 1 minute, let's put it this way. It's how do I stay wholly authentic to who I am and speak truth with deep care for where the other person is.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
My wife and I are actually listening to the audio book of nonviolent communication. We started like 3 days ago, and so we're about in the second chapter. Yeah. And so it was very, very appropriate for this workshop to come up at the time that it did. So there are actually a lot of questions that I would love to be able to ask the author, but if obviously, we're just listening to the book, so I can't. It would be interesting if you cover a lot of the questions that I have, or if that I'm
you can
able
ask
to ask later.
As well.
Yep. I'm sorry, say again?
The Q&A session would definitely be, and Mansi, meanwhile, I'll make you the co-host.
Thanks. I'll just open the appropriate things. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have your questions here maybe you could ask some of them in the Q&A. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with Marshall Rosenberg myself, but he passed away, so that's a little.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a while back.
How long ago?
I believe it was in 2000 and I think it's been eight years or so.
Okay, so not necessarily recent.
Not very recent, no. Well, okay. Yeah. But his work carries on through the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and that's where I have my certification from. Mm-hmm. But it's a very community-based kind of thing, so it doesn't look the way a lot of certification programs look. It takes about 4 or 5 years. It's very PhD like. It's really integrating it into your life and seeing how you can bring it into action.
Yeah, I have really enjoyed. That's not the right word. I have appreciated a lot of what he's said in the book so far.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm curious how he just resolves a couple different elements that
Yeah.
I, at least personally, I'm kind of internally sensing that it's wondering how it plays out within certain situations and certain personality interactions. And like I said, I'm only about 2 chapters into the book, so
Yeah.
he may indeed cover a lot of that material later. But in
Yeah,
the Q&A today, I'll ask some. We'll see
yeah,
what
I mean,
happens.
it's the book kind of covers a lot of the basics, and it's all the questions that I have. I usually go back to the book, regardless of how deep those questions are.
Mhm.
Even 11, 12 years into the practice. At the same time, it's not the whole picture. I mean, until you see it demonstrated and stuff, it doesn't really come home in the same way.
Mhm.
And there is something very special about there are these videos of him where he's talking about love, or he's talking about self empathy, or he's in fact mediating a conflict, and it really comes home as to what he means by when you're really doing this. And so
So
in
there are
fact,
YouTube videos of him actually mediating conflicts.
I don't know if they're on YouTube, but I have seen a video in a workshop which was on
Okay,
YouTube.
so there are videos, maybe not on YouTube, but
Somewhere
yeah,
in,
that
in,
would
in
be.
the world there are videos. Yes. Yes.
I distinctly appreciate how he distinguishes between, those are thoughts or beliefs. Those aren't really feelings. Those aren't emotions.
Yeah.
And he presents it in such a careful way
Yeah.
that it's it's very slow to come out how he expresses it.
Absolutely.
And what he's saying in that, I absolutely have a deep appreciation for.
Mm.
But it's within that I have also some of those internal questions about, okay, how does this actually play out
Yeah.
with
Right, James,
this
I'll have to
example?
ask you to bring your questions later. It's the time. It's about 4 o'clock. That the time that we start our session. So over to you, Mansi. I would, since this is a subject that I'm totally unaware of. Thank you, James, that you could, at least ask some relevant questions. Otherwise, it would have been like totally, So again, over to you, Mansi. Just explain what this is all about, and then you can start with the sessions.
Well, actually, I have a thought that I'd like you to experience some of it with me for the next 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm not going to say a lot about, I'm not going to start with, this is nonviolent communication and this is where it came from, because I don't think I think that's something you can read on the internet, and that's not as important to me. First of all, I want to say welcome to everyone. I see that we're starting. So hi, Charu and Chandan, Maria, Sangeeta, Anugraha, Caroline, Carol, Sushma, and people I can see on screen. It's lovely to have you guys here. Thank you for taking an hour out of your day to trust a completely unknown person with your time and energy. Um, I'm really excited to be here. I was introduced to nonviolent communication 12 years ago, and I was introduced to it at a moment where my life was really in pieces, and I didn't quite know what was happening and why it was happening. I was 24 in a terrible relationship and not really functioning, constantly anxious, really kind of hitting. I believe in spiritual communities, I can say that I was having, a kind of breakthrough, but in any other world, any other community, I'd be saying I was having a full on breakdown. And then I walked into this nonviolent communication practice group in Delhi, which is still ongoing despite Corona and stuff. They meet online, I think. And for the first time in my entire life, somebody asked me, okay, I hear that you're feeling anxious, but what do you need? And I had never heard that question before. What is it that you're longing for? And it was such a weird question, because I'd spent years exploring and understanding my feelings. I had a very rich, imaginative, emotional vocabulary, but I had no language to talk about what I wanted and what I wanted from myself or from the others or whatever. And this concept of needs is basically, it hooked me. It led to a tectonic shift in my life. And over the years, I mean, it there was something about how not just coming to a point of deep connection, but it was also about coming to a point of connection with empowerment to do something about what I'm longing for. And that's why it stayed. Um, and it has many, many aspects, but I want to just leave you with this, my starting point in this journey, as perhaps some of you encountered this for the first time. My intention for this session is that we spend maybe 30 to 40 minutes on experiencing just the heart of nonviolent communication. I don't think in an hour-long session I intend to go through the 4 steps and 3 directions and how you can, but I would like you to take away something you can actually use in your life. So I'm going to introduce you to a tool that I've designed called the Feelings and Needs Tree. Um, and we'll work with it. And for that, I would like to invite you to participate in the chat, hold on to your questions, engage with the subject matter, and maybe 30 minutes actually, so we don't have to, so you're not committing to experimenting with something you may or may not get for longer than that. So I'd love to see just, I don't know, a thumbs up or a heart sign or a, I don't know, this face. If you can do it on Zoom, just to know that you're here, all of you. And that would really give me a sense of connection. Thank you. That's a lovely face. Sakit. Thanks, Yogita. Thanks, Charu. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite us to a very, very brief meditation. Um, and it's a meditation that, so we're going to do 2 rounds of meditations, one at the beginning and one at the end, just so you know what's coming. And maybe just to begin, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. And find a way to sit that is physically comfortable, ensuring that your hips are in a space that's comfortable, that your back is relaxed, that your legs are folded or held or resting on surfaces that you find comfortable and supportive. And just to arrive into this experience, maybe you can bring your awareness to your breath, noticing how your breath comes in to the body and how you exhale. Noticing how the breath touches the nose, the throat, the heart, and the tummy as you breathe in. And how these parts relax as you breathe out. And noticing without an intention of changing anything, just really welcoming your breathing as is right now. Checking if you're breathing deeply or in a shallow way. And as you do this, on the next breath, notice how your breath extends to different parts of your body. What happens to your feet as you breathe deeply in and out? What happens in your hands as you breathe in and out? Noticing your back on the in breath and out breath. Noticing your shoulders and the back of your neck. Your head, your face. And perhaps really inviting your breath to fill you up fully. And welcoming 2 or 3 breaths of just stillness with yourself. To be in a space of deep stillness. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. You're just here. And in this space of stillness, I'm going to ask you a question. And I'd like you to let the answer come in whatever form it wants to. It could be in images, feelings, or something different, story, thoughts. And the question is, what would you like your world to look like? What would you like to see in your world? In your world as is around you, within you, the globe, or just your home? Whatever resonates most as your world, what would you truly love to see in this space? And welcoming the answer as it comes. Maybe it's an image, so welcoming the full visual. Maybe it's a story, so following the story a little bit. Maybe it's a series of thoughts, a strong opinion, or just one word, a strong cry for something you want. Whatever it is, welcoming it and truly sitting for a few breaths with this experience of this idea of what you really want in your world. And when you feel ready, you can take the time that you need, gently disengaging with your inner space and bringing your awareness out into this meeting, taking the time that you need. And I'd like to invite you to put what you want in your world into the chat. We'll give it 2 or 3 minutes. Put it in as many words or as few words as you like. What would you love to have in your world? And like as many of you as are willing to do that. You have 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sangeeta. Yes, Anugraha. Umpteen happy moments. I love that. For anybody who's joining in, the question is what would you love to see in the world around you? Thank you, Sushma. Thank you, Carolyn. Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Charu. I really want to live in all these worlds. Sounds beautiful. I'm going to give it one more minute and then I'm going to explain why on earth we did this. Thank you, Carolyn. And Marina and Alpa, I believe you're just joining us. So tracking that and wanting to let you know that we're exploring, we just did a short meditation to explore this question. What would I really love to see in my world? And the invitation is to put it in the chat. And in case you haven't put it in the chat, I hope you're listening and I hope you're present. There's no way to know on these Zoom calls. So I'm now going to share a tool with you, a resource with you. And this resource is downloadable here. It's a free resource. There are some requests about using it. The requests are stuff like, please don't change the logo and please let the design be as is and stuff, because yeah, a lot of love went into making this, and I would like it to go into the world, and I would love for it to be seen for what it is. And this is the resource. This is what I call the feelings and needs tree. Um, and what I'd like you to do is I'm going to expand my screen so you can see the words at the bottom of the tree. And everything that you've shared or everything you're experiencing about the world you want, take a look at these words, then the words at the roots, and see if one or two or three of them really resonate, and put them in the chat, please. And I want to check if anybody has any questions so far. It's just me talking. Usually it's not just me talking. But is it clear, Saket?
100%, Mansi.
100%. Wonderful.
Yep. Very clear. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, take a moment, look at the words, these brown words under the tree, under the roots, and see what resonates. Really look at what resonates. And put one or two or three of them into the chat. Thank you, James. And that's really interesting to me, because when you say emotional security, I could not have known you wanted affection, touch, communication. Thank you, Sangeeta. You sent it to me directly. Thank you. Thank you, Anugraha. Yeah, celebration of life, for sure. I would be very curious, particularly about um, peace of mind from Charu. Charu, if you want to look at what needs might be met, what words resonate when you say peace of mind. Thank you, Yogita. Yeah, thanks, James. Thank you, Sangeeta. And I so want to just extend a bit of tenderness to these precious longings beneath the pain-free body, of movement, of healing, of warmth and ease and laughter. That's what you want when you say peace of mind. And the reason I wanted to pick up on these two pieces, I think James, yours, and Charu, yours, the peace of mind and emotional security, often sound like they're fairly self-evident needs. Everyone needs emotional security. Everyone needs peace of mind. And somehow when we say them to people and we say, I just want some peace of mind, what the other person hears is, I'm not good enough, or I'm the one screwing your peace of mind up. If I say I want emotional security, the other person hears, oh my God, you're scared of me, or some version of that. I'm loving the engagement with the needs. This is kind of my experience of what happened the first time somebody showed me these words, that all of these are my needs, really. It was really joyful. Um, please keep them coming, and I'm going to say maybe a few more pieces as this progresses. So basically, maybe in the emotional security, peace of mind, translated to needs, examples, if we could look at them as examples, there's something different between peace of mind, emotional security, pain-free body, umpteen happy moments with your family, and the words that I hear in this list. And I want to point that difference out. Actually, I'm wondering if somebody wants to guess what that difference is. Why is it different to say it this way? What do those other words imply? What is changing when I say it in these words rather than the earlier words? And you could respond from your own perspective.
These are more to the point.
Yeah, there's something more essential about it, something more crystallized. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I missed part of your question. Would you please repeat it?
Yes, sorry. My question is, what is different? What happens, and why is it different to say it in these words versus the earlier version?
Right, the part I missed was what are the two sets of words I'm comparing? I apologize.
So, for example, when you said emotional security, or someone said peace of mind, and someone, that's one way of expressing what I really want, and that's completely valid. And yet, I can say it in this way, or I can crystallize it to these words. So, what is the difference? What is different about saying I want affection, touch, or saying emotional security for you?
It's more specific. I mean, some of them, at least mine, can be tied directly to an action that fulfills the need rather than just expressing the lack of
Yeah.
whatever I have.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a very beautiful point about, it's not about expressing the lack of what I have, but about expressing what I am longing for. And it
I would say
is.
this is maybe, sorry to
Oh no.
interject,
Right?
perhaps maybe this is more a positive reinforcement of our needs. Like instead of saying I want emotional security, when I say maybe I want belonging or some other equivalent word, maybe I'm reinforcing my need in a positive way. So it's less threatening also to the person I'm expecting it from.
A little bit about it is less threatening, definitely, because it has something to do with taking their relationship with my need out of it. So it's not that you are connected to my emotional security anymore, or you have something to do with my peace of mind. There might be actions related to my needs, but my needs are suddenly no longer expressed in association with you, which means that rather than, the difference I'm drawing you to is, when I express it in this way that involves another person, place, even in my thinking, if I'm assuming it involves these things, it's really, or if it's conceptual, it becomes more like a strategy versus what is really essential to my experience, which is what we call a need. And I want to say one more sentence about that, and to hear how it lands. Is needs, the word needs was chosen by Marshall Rosenberg not because it was the right word for what was going on, but because it was the easiest way to express what he was trying to drive us at. Because needs can imply it's a list of requirements. Needs can imply it's, if I translate it into Hindi, it comes to zarurate. And zarurate is like something you tick off a checklist. And that's not what needs are. Or that's not what these words refer to. These words refer to essences, something that is essential to my life and my wellness in life. And all of these needs are critical to me being a full, thriving being on this planet. So it is an essence of me. It's not a requirement that I have of someone or myself. It's an essence. So I'd love to hear how that lands, what comes up for you when you hear that. Anyone?
Sorry, would you again repeat the question? I'm finding my attention divided between taking notes and listening to what you're saying, and I'm not doing as good a job as I would like.
Right. My question was just how, when you hear this, when you're taking your notes and this idea comes to you, what do you think? How does it land? I noticed Archana moving. Archana, were you going to say something? See, this is what happens when two people have their cameras on. I'll pick up on them.
Just a note to everyone, we are recording the session and it would be later available on Chef at Large YouTube channel.
Yeah, considering it's on Chef at Large, I can maybe even say it differently. It's like the ingredients to the perfect life that I have. That's what my needs are. I need these things for it to be tasty and nourishing and fulfilling. Yeah. Okay. Archana, just wanting to check, were you going to say something? And if not, that's fine. I didn't mean to call you out, but just want to check. Okay, thanks. So I'm going to say a couple more things about needs now. And this is important. And this is why nonviolent communication is very, very different from what the word can imply. So when I walked in, Saket said, is it that, I'm not going to hurt anyone anymore? And that's not true, actually. I don't think NVC is about being nice or about always getting it right or about being less offensive. Let's put it that way. It's definitely not. And the reason I think that's not what it's about is because at the heart of NVC is this idea of needs. And that crystallizes into three elements. One is that everything I'm doing, we do or do not do, is an expression of my needs. I'll say that again. Every single thing I do or do not do, I say or do not say, I think or do not think, I feel or do not feel, is an expression or an attempt to meet my needs. That's one piece. The second piece is about my needs are the same as your needs. Needs are universal. Everyone has the same set of needs. And the third piece, and up till now, I think we can still get away with being nice. But now the niceness falls apart because the third part is everybody's needs matter. And in that idea, there is this radical suggestion that the inequity with which we deal with relationships, the inequity in our world, in our systems, is fundamentally based on the idea that some people's needs matter more than other people's needs. And NVC is strongly about everybody's needs mattering. It suggests that when we can connect at the level of needs, from that space, we once we've hit that point of connection, we can take steps towards making life beautiful for everyone. That there will be no conflict at the level of needs. So, I mean, if we just look at our own needs here, in our chat box, all of these, no, I can't imagine anybody has a conflict with these needs. But in terms of strategies, we might have disagreements. So, for Anugraha, I believe the meeting needs for affection and fun and play. And let me just go back and look at the chat quickly. Yeah, there's umpteen moments, umpteen happy moments in the family, and laughter, warmth, nurturing, joy, closeness, presence. Now, I can fully agree with laughter, presence, warmth, nurturing, joy, closeness, presence. But my family may not have the capacity to bring me those things. I may not find joy in my family. I might find joy in a different space. I might find closeness with my cats, or I might find closeness more in literature, for that matter. Our strategies can be different, but we will not disagree at the level of needs. We will disagree at the level of strategies. Yeah, that's what I want to say about needs. And I want to say a little bit about feelings before I invite you to do a tiny mental exercise, and then we'll open the space for questions. Before I do the feelings bit, I want to check, does anything come up for you that needs to be named about needs? What arises for you? What do you experience? You can put it in the chat also if you don't want to unmute.
one question. Well, I don't know. Not quite. I should have prefaced it, but there's the idea of being able to identify your need. Um, I'm a hypnotherapist, and so I deal a lot with subconscious expression, and a lot that goes on in the subconscious we don't know how to express in verbal words because the ANS, autonomic nervous system, doesn't use verbal language. It's not complicated and it's not complex enough. So it basically gives us these emotional responses that we then have to make assumptions, conscious assumptions about our own emotional responses. And often it's hard to identify. So when it comes to identifying and then communicating, there are so many opportunities to get it wrong, even with our own understanding. And I don't really know whether that's a question or an observation or a concern or however take it, but that's coming to mind.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. What comes up for me, and I'm not even sure if this is a response to what you were not sure is a question, is just what comes up for me is um, I think the language of our subconscious and our body and the somatic world that we live in. I mean, I'm not qualified to talk about it, but in my experience with my own healing and what I notice in me, the language of my body is much more childlike. And so sometimes a need will show up like, I really want my father to hug me right now. And that's just what my child says, like my inner child says, now I want a hug. Or I want that specific, you know, role, this potato roll that my mom used to make. And of course, there's, not possible to have that role anymore because my mom's not on the planet. Not in the same way, she might be on the planet, I don't know, but she's definitely not in the physical form on the planet anymore. And so those roles don't exist, and but there's a very specific need for that particular role. And my inner child does not have the vocabulary or the willingness, for that matter, to say it in terms of it's about nurturance or warmth or familiarity or safety or empathy or love. So it's about, when we do this self connection, the idea is to give myself enough room each, and I can say this to you when many of you are healers and in different ways, so I can say this in this space, that each part of me that shows up will have its own vocabulary, and yet there's something that holds it all together, that is me, the self, that is I am the observer, I am the person holding these pieces. So as I do that, I can hold the vocabulary of this part of me, and yet come to a greater sense of clarity about what it means for me as a whole. And sometimes needs don't want, sometimes our feelings will come as feelings and needs both will arrive just in the way they arrive. The point is not, and this is maybe also I need to say this, the words are there to help us connect with the idea. These are training words. But the idea is much more that, because NVC is not just a practice, it's also a consciousness. It's not a process, it's a being. So when I can be with this idea that everything I do is about my needs, which is fundamental to me as a human being, and it's the same as what exists in the other, that's a deeply spiritual concept. So the words are there to support us, but they're not there for to get it right. I hope that gives you some sense. Like I don't, it's a non-response response to what you were not asking.
No, I think that you responded to it very directly. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I love that question. I think I'd love more questions. So I'll just say the two pieces I have, and let's do that exercise and get so I get to engage with questions more. I'm usually better with questions. So I'm going to move to the top of the tree, which is what's happening on the surface. So if I am a tree, if I was a tree, this is what I was asking myself when I designed this tool. Is if I love trees, and if I was a tree, what would make me joyful, flourishing, fulfilled? Is when my needs are fully met, when my roots are nourished, when I'm getting the nurturance that I need in the form of these needs. On the other hand, when I don't get these things, then I might feel depleted or uh, not flourishing for that matter. So the idea with this tree, and I'll make it a little smaller so you can look at it clearly. The suggestion is that that you can use this tree to connect with, first of all, what you're experiencing, and secondly, with why you're experiencing it, which draws me to a critical piece of information or part of NVC that is important to mention here, which is that my feelings are a critical, it's an important, really important part of my practice to be able to feel my feelings fully, and yet to feel them with the awareness that my feelings are kind of a signal that my body sends me about the state of my needs. So I might be feeling, say, really fatigued and burnt out and tired. And I might think, okay, that's about rest. But it could be about other needs also. I might be feeling elated and joyful and peaceful. And that's about needs that are met, maybe around things like connection or love or intimacy or inclusion or cooperation, belonging. Um, there's the invitation is that this gives you enough of a vocabulary to explore your feelings fully, and again mentioning that the vocabulary of the body is different. So sometimes feelings arrive as body sensations, sometimes they show up as something different in us, but to be able to identify them enough that I can then use them to connect with my needs. Because and the reason for that is because when I walk up to someone and I say, I want to talk to you about how confused I'm feeling, or I feel confused right now, the likelihood of that person fully wanting to listen to me goes down a little bit as compared to when I say, you know what, I would really like to create a space of deeper understanding between us. I have a longing to understand and to be understood. Or I would love to have more awareness of what's going on with you. And would you be willing to talk to me about it? So that's what I wanted to say about feelings. And I'm going to leave this open and invite you to a little quick exercise. I just want to check if there are any questions about feelings before we do this mental exercise. Maybe that'll help with some clarity as well. Okay, going once, going twice, and I'm moving on. Um, yes. So I'd like you to it's a mental exercise and you can do it meditatively, you can do it in writing, whatever feels comfortable at this moment. I'd like you to think of someone that you're having a bit of a problem with. And I say emphasis on bit of a problem. Let's not choose a political leader that you have very strong opinions about, but like a person who's bugging you a little bit, an annoyance, something that's annoying. And I'd like you to really get clarity on what is this person doing or saying that is annoying. So you have a minute to sort of write it down for yourself or get to a sense of it within you. Person that's really annoying me or somewhat annoying me. And what is it that they're doing that is annoying? What is it that they're saying exactly that bugs you? And you could visualize it if you like as well. And please remember to choose only one person. We might have many people who are bugging us. When you come to a sense of this person and what they're doing, take a look at what your needs might be in this situation. What are you needing when you're annoyed or hurt or upset? What would you really like in this situation? And choose one or two or three words that represent what you really want. If you have many more coming up, that's fine. But even in those 10 or 15 words, pick up two or three that are the most critical. Yes, and I love this. You could use the chat to express it. Thanks, Sangeeta. Yes. I'm hearing closeness and communication. I'm thinking of somebody who's annoying me right now, and I notice I have a longing for stability. What else? I'd love to see like a thumbs up or something to know that you've got your needs. Thanks, James. Thank you, Anugraha. Sushma, Maria, Charu, Carolyn. I can't pronounce your name. Is that Malti? Malti. Nisha, Sangeeta, Chandan, Saket, Archana. You'll notice I'm now starting to call you out because I have such a deep longing for connection. So, thank you, Nisha. You send it to me privately, but I see that you're there. Thank you very much. Thanks, Archana. Thank you, Sushma. As a facilitator, it's really helpful to have like something to play off of. So, thank you. Thanks, Carolyn. Thank you, Charu. Thank you, Maria. All right. So, as you connect with these needs, as you bring them into your awareness, maybe just give yourself 3 or 4 breaths to give some room to the fact that these are precious to me. It's so precious to me to have affection. Charu, if you're wanting patience and to be less reactive, could you please see in this list what need that would meet? Like safety, stability, and give yourself 3 or 4 or 5 breaths to just welcome fully that this is my longing. This is really precious to me. This is a precious essence of my life showing up right now in my annoyance, telling me what I want. And you can put a hand on your heart, or you could find some way to fully acknowledge it, just something that gives you a sense of acknowledgement. And I'm going to ask you to mentally just taking a breath, shift from your perspective to the other person. Bring into awareness what they might be seeing, what they might be doing. And coming back to this list, check what could their needs be in this situation. And it would be great to write it down. Thank you, Charu. Charu, I don't know if that's your needs or the other person's, but please also check for the other person's needs. Thank you. So now from the other perspective, what could they be needing? Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Charu. Yes, thanks. Thank you, Sushma. Sushma and Sangeeta, your similar situation. Nisha, you're still sending me private messages, so I don't know if you want me to talk about it openly, but um, yes, I see that you found their feeling. And if you're not able to come to the point of the other person's needs, that's okay. It might be valuable to stay with your own needs until you have more connection with yourself before you go to the other person. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Archana. We'll hold that question for a little bit later. Sushma. Okay. And just to close this exercise, I'd like you to just mentally, in whatever way you need to, make sure you come back to yourself and check now, how do you feel at this moment? When you've seen this other person's needs, is there a shift? There doesn't have to be a shift. It could be that there is still anger, irritation, and that's perfectly fine. How do you feel? What comes up for you? Thank you, Sangeeta. That's interesting. Yeah. So I'm hearing that you have a complete shift from anger to compassion and patience. Sushma, you're feeling acceptance. I want to say openly, I feel still a little bit irritated with the person I was thinking about. But that gives me some information that I'm not fully in connection with my needs just yet, and I need a little bit more empathy for myself um, before I can fully connect with the other person. And that's important for me to say, maybe just as the last couple of things I'd like to say is that it's important that it's not that NVC means I have to be empathizing with the other all the time. Definitely not. But it is about engaging with what is alive for me. So when I have a sense that I'm still irritated and constricted, that's information about the state of my needs. So I can stay with that and come to my needs and figure out what is it that I need in order for this need to be met. What do I need to be doing? So I'm going to stop my screen sharing because this is pretty much what I wanted to do. And I'd love to hear some questions. And as there are 14 of you, I had a thought about, maybe Saket, would you like to moderate it in some way? Could people raise their hands? How does it go normally?
No, usually people are a little slow on asking questions anyway. So yeah, I guess James had a couple of them, and then
Sushma has a question.
yeah. So let's begin, guys. Open house.
I can Sushma, would you be willing to say a bit more about your question about the unkindness and empathy? What does that mean?
Showing empathy.
Sorry, we can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, showing empathy. Uh, if a person is having lot of empathy within herself or himself, and every situation, be it in favor or not in favor, whether with friends, family, relatives, everything, doesn't it lead to being unkind?
If I'm constantly in a state of empathy with myself and not with others? Yeah, this is a beautiful and important question. And this is sometimes in NVC we talk about um, self there. So basically, feelings and needs are the heart of the process. There are two other steps: is observations and requests, which I didn't touch upon at all because, yeah, I don't want to confuse everyone. And these four steps can be taken in three directions. So it can be taken towards myself for empathy, towards the other in two ways, which is through, so for self empathy, or empathy for the other, and expression of myself. um, Now what happens often is when I say, I'm doing empathy for the other, I'm doing this being empathic with the other, or I'm doing empathy for myself, what is left out is that actually empathy is a quality, it's a capacity. It's not a process. It's not about whether I'm in connection with myself all the time at the cost of the other person. That's not empathy, really. That's something different. Empathy as a quality is about presence to what is alive in me and what is alive for the other. And it is about, um, I like to draw a difference between the process of empathy, self empathy, and the quality of being empathic, which is not for myself or the other, which is not directional. It's a quality and it extends both ways. So if I'm in true empathy with myself, I will naturally have more space for the other. But if I'm quote unquote self connecting but not having space for other people, most likely, and I say this with a little bit of as gently as I can, but most likely I'm not in self empathy. I'm most likely wallowing in my feelings. And the what happens when I'm wallowing in my feelings is I'm dwelling in the stories that my feelings tell me and the imaginative, beautiful, because feelings are, it's lovely to connect with my feelings and they do come with all these colors, but and that but it's and it can be quite addictive to come there, especially if in my life I haven't had a lot of space for myself. So if I'm wallowing, I'm what I mean by wallowing is I'm stuck with my feelings, but I haven't fully connected with my needs, and even more importantly, I haven't done something to care for my needs. NVC is not about sitting in the zen of, oh, I am like now in self connection and great, like, do something about it. I have a need for love and I'm going to sit here in an unloving space and be miserable. That's a kind of, yeah, wallowing, toxic addiction thing. I'm using very non-NVC words, huh, matlab, but that's what it
Thank you.
means. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. James, I believe you had several questions. And yes, I'm going to put a couple of things in the chat while you ask those questions as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was writing out some notes based off of some things that I was thinking about from what you've been saying. And then once I got that, I was wanting to phrase my question in a succinct manner. So I guess I have two things. One, I kind of have a summary of what I've gotten from what you've said in combination with what I've already been listening to in the book. And then I have a question. So I want to find out if you would agree with my summary, and then I'll ask my question that I started today with.
Yes.
So my understanding, and again, confirm or correct, is that all communication is motivated by an emotional response to meet our needs, which means that all communication is motivated by an emotional response to a perceived deficiency in our needs. Therefore, all communication is at least in part an expression of our need. Consequently, when we express our needs in a manner by which we are defending against a further violation of our needs, there's a great tendency for the defensive element of that expression to represent a threat to the other person's needs. And that threat to the other person's needs represents violent communication. Therefore, nonviolent communication is the art and science of expressing our deficiency of need in a manner that does not include the defensive element of emotional protection, so that it does not generate a consequent response of emotional defense in the other party.
Could you say just the last bit again, so that it just not does not something?
Therefore, nonviolent communication is the art and science of expressing our deficiency of need in a manner that does not include the defensive element of emotional protection, so that it does not generate a consequent response of emotional defense in the other party.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I enjoy how deeply you're thinking about it. And I enjoy I'm guessing that it's connecting with a whole bunch of other things that you've experienced. And so it's something's opening. And yeah, I'll just say two or three things. Everything we say or do is either a please or a thank you for an unmet or a met need. So it's not just about the deficiency or the unmetness of my need.
Okay.
So there's a please and a thank you. So no matter what I'm saying or what the other person is saying, there's a please there or a thank you for meeting my needs. Please do this for me. Unfortunately, please do this for me often comes across as you did this to me and you're a bad person. But actually what they're saying is please see me, please hear me, please care for me. Or I'm, saying, oh my God, you really, like, for example, what is the recent one? Well done, looks like a meaningful contribution. And what that means is thank you for something that something that is met in me. That's one. I resonate that there's a difference between emotional, so unconscious emotional protective measure mechanisms that come up inside us, which is like habits, thoughts, beliefs, inner critic stuff, etc., etc. And there's a lot of work we can do with that. unconscious protection versus conscious boundaries. So I can and I would encourage people to not ever imagine that just that being in empathy is about lowering all my defenses so I'm constantly exposed, which is different from conscious vulnerability. So I can set a boundary based on my needs. This is how far I'm willing to go to meet this need, and beyond that I don't want to go further. And
Mhm.
that's a really important kind of distinction, especially where I think it's important to say this, because if I don't do that, I'm not in full authenticity with myself. um I'm I'm in a power imbalance when I'm giving more than I want to. And when I'm doing this, I'm likely to be replicating more systemic violence than I'm sorry to
Mhm.
say that I have seen that happen, where
Mhm.
um, say a woman might be asked to empathize with a man who she has triggers from over and over again because, oh, it's NBC.
Mhm.
Whereas this person is now doing aggressive things like breaking into a house or calling endlessly or whatever, and that's not NVC. That's something else. That's abusive, toxic stuff. So
Mhm.
it's important to have discernment in this. Um,
Right.
and maybe the last piece is around the purpose of nonviolent communication for me is about coming to a space of connection, um, and being open to what arises in the other person, but not having an agenda of what should arise from them. So it's not that I speak to them in order to make it easier for them to be less defensive. I speak to them with care and authenticity and empathy for what shows up. But what shows up for them is essentially their business. And that's one of those boundaries.
And I think that directly goes into the question, the main question that I have, so far in the book. So I'm concerned about the danger and or risk of directly exposing our deficiency of need to those who have either a desire and or just an inherent tendency to
Yes.
abuse our deficiency.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So,
At a different point, I think in the same book or one of his books, Marshall Rosenberg tells this story about a man who's looking for his keys in the dark. Have you heard this story?
no.
So there's a man and he's under this lamplight. It's on a street and he's frantically searching for something. And a policeman walks up to him and says, what's up? What are you doing? What have you lost? So he said, no, I dropped my keys. So he says, okay, let me help you. So about an hour passes, another hour passes, and 3 hours later, the policeman finally looks at him and says, are you sure you dropped it here? And the man says, actually, no, I didn't drop them here at all. I dropped them in that dark corner over there, but I'm looking here because there's light here. We often habitually look to have our needs met in places where they're not going to be met. And what feeds into that is systems, cultures, habits, stories, etc. So one part of my answer to you is that I don't have to, there is nothing, I do not need to make myself visible to people when, or, again, expose myself versus being vulnerable with people where I know that, where I'm not sure that my needs will be met here. And the other piece is around vulnerability itself. This is not NVC directly, but it does tie up with it. But Brené Brown talks about how, you know, most of you would know this, but Brené Brown talks about building trust and building vulnerability. And it's not that you have vulnerability and then trust, but that they grow, little vulnerability and a little trust, and a little vulnerability and a little trust. So it's like they grow mutually. We don't have to. I have such a strong feeling about this. So important not to um, be okay. I know there's a nicer way to say this, but I don't want to be naked with somebody who's not taking their pants off. Sorry, just that's horrible. It's a terrible way of saying it. I don't know why that came to me. I have a judgment about I could have been a little bit more dignified there. A little embarrassment shows up, and yeah, a little embarrassment, a celebration of authenticity, and maybe also a little bit of longing for dignity. Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Maybe off topic. What would you say if a person? There are many people who are holding anger against the person who's already left this world.
Anger with a person who's already left this world. Is this so? I don't know the context, but there are two abstract things that come up immediately. Three things. One, that anger is, you know how there's anger is often about unexpressed grief. That's one. If it's a feeling that arises in me, it's mine. It has nothing to do with that person. So even if I'm angry with someone, it's my anger. I hold anger for the other in the context of the other. And the third thing is anger, shame, guilt, and depression are four feelings that are incredibly complicated. So I don't know if you notice on the tree, but they're mentioned separately. There's no subheadings. I think guilt has one, but anger, shame, depression stays separate. This is because they are feelings that are complicated by a thought that hasn't been, or a belief that hasn't been expressed. So maybe I'm angry with someone because they left too early. And how did you leave me in this world? So I want to give room for that thinking and for the charge that's in me. And when I've given enough room to that thinking and connected with the needs beneath that, it's likely that I have more, that anger has more of a chance of shifting to grief or whatever is under that. It could be grief, it could be pain, it could be mourning. With the COVID situation, and because we are not as a collective remembering our old ways of grieving, a lot of this will turn into anger. And I think many of us as healers will come across that. But it is, when a child is stomping around and angry, they're really just crying, they're screaming because they're in pain.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Okay, we're exactly at 5. Very timely. I just want to make sure that if there's anything left unexpressed, unasked, that it has some space. So, and I want to do a little shameless self promotion, with your permission, Saket.
Oh, let's see. The forum is all about giving and getting.
Yes.
So
if you want to learn, here's my little same shameless plug. If you want to learn about how to express yourself using NVC principles in 40 words or less, there's a workshop starting like right now, and you can talk to Aditya about it. This is really last minute. And I want to share that in addition to this, we do a lot of work. My work is around NVC and social change, and I run an organization called Encompassion, and also we have a project called Living Bridges. And Living Bridges is about, it's about NVC and social change, and that's one bridge, but it's also about the bridge between what is within and what is on the outside, and my needs and the world's needs. So it's about being that point of connection. And we do weekly workshops and a training program that is ongoing. The Inner Foundations program started 1 week back, but you can still join, and there's a recording. And please stay in touch with me if you want to find out more, because I love to talk about NVC. And I'm putting my name in the chat. I'm done with my self-promotion. That embarrassment is back again. Interesting.
well, thank you, Mansi. I'll say pretty interesting, because not exactly what I thought it would be. And so definitely, yes. Something, and interestingly, two of the concepts that immediately come to my mind, but well, because I've been there, done that kind of a thing, I could, closely relate it to clean questioning. Probably we can mix that and this and that and get some really good results. And another thing, NLP patterns, always as a hypnotist, they keep coming back to of my mind. But overall, a very interesting workshop. Thank you very much. And guys, Mansi would be there on the Community Healers Forum. If you're not there, please get there. Be a part of us. Every Saturday, we bring one of the people to share what they know. And then, of course, once they do that, they also get an opportunity to refer, which is generally otherwise not allowed on the Community Healers Forum. So any of you would like to be part of our Saturday sessions, please feel free. Let us know what you would like to talk about, what you would like to share, how experiential it could be. Most welcome. And that's it for now. See you guys later next Saturday, 4 to 5. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.